Hello again to both Souls vets and newcomers alike. Today, I want to talk about one of the best elements of any Souls game, the bosses. I think most Soulsborne players would agree that the boss fights are a huge highlight of the games themselves. It's what we cut our teeth on, what we relentlessly hit our heads against time and time again, till we hit the sublime moment of victory, and then repeat. I've had some personal thoughts on the bosses that have elevated some of my favorite games, the ones I look forward to fighting with every subsequent playthrough. As before, all of these are my personal opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. From the haunting halls of Lordran to the twisted streets of Yharnam, these are the bosses I enjoyed fighting the most in Soulsborne games. Kicking off our list is Fume Knight from Dark Souls 2. I have to be completely honest that most of the Dark Souls 2 bosses don't particularly blow me away, even though I enjoy the game immensely otherwise, but Fume Knight really stands out to me for being a tough challenge and for having one of the coolest swords in the entire trilogy. I thought about putting Sir Allant in this list, but Fume Knight beats him out for me just because I love the fight a little bit more, and also because Allant's runback is a little crazy. His dual phase fight with a colossal sword and flame attacks combines precise timing and adaptability. Many consider him the peak of DS2's difficulty curve and a highlight of the DLCs. Old King Allant, the penultimate boss in Demon Souls, makes my list at the number 9 slot, after taking one of the longest elevator rides ever constructed, which to be fair helps build the tension. You see the old king waiting for you at the very top of Boletaria. Thanks in part to the beautiful presentation of the remake, the Allant fight feels appropriately epic. While the fight isn't nearly as challenging as even some of the mid-game fights in later Souls games, I feel that nevertheless, Allant is a progenitor of sorts for the boss movesets of later titles. Allant is an important fight towards contributing to FromSoft's legacy. Coming in at number 8, we have Artorias the Abysswalker. Besides being one of my favorite bosses, Artorias is also one of my favorite Soulsborne characters in general. He drips with very direct references to Berserk, present in everything from his armor to his acrobatic moveset. Artorias stands as a tragic figure corrupted by the very abyss he sought to vanquish. His incredible intro sets the tone for the fight, and I love that it feels like the clash between two hardened warriors. Taking the next spot on my list is Malenia, Blade of Miquella, and the Goddess of Rot. It's interesting that one of the most hyped up bosses in Elden Ring is an optional one tucked away in a hidden area at the bottom of the world, but I think that actually adds to the mystique and intrigue of the fight itself. As with Artorias, I feel that I'm locked in an epic confrontation between a seasoned warrior. I love how vicious, frenetic, and fluid Malenia's moveset is, and I find myself looking forward to fighting her the most in subsequent Elden Ring playthroughs. As the dust has settled since Elden Ring's release, I still hold the Malenia fight in high regard. The showdown with Ornstein and Smough, arguably the pinnacle of the first Dark Souls. Ornstein and Smough are the formidable guardians of Anor Londo's cathedral, a point which is arguably the pinnacle of the game. The fight feels like a culmination of everything the player has learned up to this point of the game, and it tests every part of their mettle. I love that Ornstein and Smough have complementary movesets and movement speeds, Ornstein with his quick dashes and spear thrusts, and Smough with his slow, pillar-toppling hammer swings. The first phase, which pits the player against both foes simultaneously, forces the player to think quickly and devise strategies mid-battle. The first time I conquered them, it gave me a rush that I carried on for the rest of the game. Ludwig, the first boss of Bloodborne's DLC, is one of many reasons I hold the DLC in such high regard. Ludwig, once a valiant hunter, now transformed into a grotesque monstrosity, embodies the horror of the hunt. His frenzied attacks and unearthly cries echo throughout the nightmare, providing a tough but fair challenge for players. The music during this fight, which shifts during phases, might be my favorite track in the entire game. The mid-fight cutscene is also my favorite FromSoft cutscene ever, as Ludwig finds the ever-iconic Moonlight Greatsword and regains an element of his past humanity. This is FromSoft firing on all cylinders.
You were at my side all along. My true mentor, my guiding moonlight.
Lady Maria, the second to last boss of the Bloodborne Old Hunters DLC, takes my next spot. She and Ludwig were completely neck and neck for a while in my ranking, but I'm giving Maria a slight edge just because of my personal preference for smaller, human-sized battles in Soulsborne games. I personally find Ludwig to be more challenging, but enjoy the Lady Maria battle just a bit more. Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower is a master of the art of combat, seamlessly blending grace and ferocity in her attacks. To overcome her, one must not only match her skill, but also pierce the veil of her tragic past, and uncover the secrets she suffers while residing in the Astral Clock Tower at the top of the research hall. With a moveset based on Blood Tinge and the Rakuyo Katana, her fight is one I look forward to time and time again. Getting down to number 3 is Sister Friede from the Ashes of Ariandel DLC in Dark Souls 3. I'm not a huge fan of the DLC as a whole, but Friede nevertheless is one of my favorite Soulsborne bosses of all time. Sister Friede, the eldest of the 3 sisters of the Sable Church of Londor, is a master of deception and manipulation. To overcome her, one must not only face her deadly scythe, but also an incredibly fast, white-knuckle fight. The first reveal of her 3rd phase is something I'll never forget, and her surprisingly agile moveset provides a welcome challenge every time I make an attempt on her. Excellent stuff. Slave Knight Gael, the embodiment of perseverance, is a fitting challenge for the very end of the Dark Souls 3 Ring City DLC. Another full-blown berserk reference, with everything from a repeating crossbow to the greatsword he wields, is a treat to see for fans. I mentioned that the Ring City was also one of my favorite areas in Soulsborne games ever, and Gael is a huge reason for my opinion. I love this boss so much because he feels like a love letter to the Dark Souls series as a whole, and as fitting a conclusion I could imagine to the games. And finally, my absolute favorite boss in a FromSoft game, Pinwheel. Nah, just kidding. And finally, my absolute favorite boss in a FromSoft game, Sword Saint Isshin from Sekiro. I've mentioned in my previous video that I'm aware of the debate about whether or not Sekiro is a true Soulsborne game, but the Isshin fight brings together every single element I love about epic boss fights, and I want to include it because I love it so much. Though the bosses the player faces in other Soulsborne games tend to be well past the height of their abilities, Sekiro faces Isshin in his prime, where he encounters a 3-phase fight with a horde of surprises. Conquering Sword Saint Isshin is still one of my favorite gaming moments of all time. And there you have it, fellow Soulsborns, the top 10 bosses in the Soulsborne universe. From the depths of the abyss to the heights of the heavens, these adversaries have tested our strength, our skill, and our will to survive. But remember, in the worlds of FromSoft, death is not the end, but merely another step on the journey towards redemption. So go forth, brave souls, and let that sun be praised. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about your favorite bosses in the comments below. Maybe you had similar feelings, or maybe you disagree with me entirely. Either way, let me know. As always, I appreciate any and all support, so please throw a like and subscribe my way if you enjoyed this video. Again, I'm also on Patreon at patreon.com/theinfernalrealm, and and I stream on Twitch as An Infernal One. Thank you again.